Greetings, fellow Bible readers. Welcome to week 45 of our read through of the Bible. This week we are heading into the Gospel of John, and there are two features about that Gospel of John that we want to take note of. First, it is not one of the synoptic Gospels. Last week we talked about Luke and how it's one of the three synoptic Gospels that look at the life of Jesus largely from the same perspective, that they record many of the same events, many of the same parables and miracles of Jesus' life. John's gospel departs from that. Yes, there are some events that John hits on that the other gospel writers hit on as well. However, John departs from those other gospel writers in a lot of different ways, and especially in his style. And that brings us to the second notable feature about John's gospel that you'll want to be aware of, and that is the way that John uses very simple language and simple terminology to talk about very profound and deep truths. He uses words like life and light to talk about some of the key truths of the gospel. So you want to pay attention to how those come through in his gospel. Let's get into the details for each day, though. On day one, we finish up the Gospel of Luke with chapters 23 and 24 of that Gospel. And you want to notice as Jesus goes to the cross and even in his resurrection, his concern and his focus on the people who are in the background, so to speak. He talks and addresses the women of Jerusalem who follow him out in the background. He deals with the soldiers who nail him to the cross, kind of in the background, taking care of the actual details of having Jesus crucified. Jesus focuses on the thief on the cross, another individual in the background. Focuses on two lesser disciples who are on the road to Emmaus, certainly a background feature in the resurrection. So a significant thought there. Then on day two, we get into the Gospel of John with chapters 1 through 3. And here we see John introduce the two major themes that he likes to use in his Gospel that are kind of revolve around some terminology. And those are the themes of life and light. You see that very clearly in his introduction. And you'll want to watch for how those themes come back throughout the Gospel of John. On day 3, we get into John chapters 4 and 5, and there we get back-to-back conversations, one with an individual, a Samaritan woman, the other with a group of Jews about this matter of life that Jesus has come to give. Then on day 4, we get into chapter 6 through chapter 7, verse 52. And you'll especially want to watch in chapter 6 the conversation that follows the feeding of the 5,000 and how Jesus uses that miracle to talk to the crowd about spiritual matters, especially the fact that he is spiritual bread who gives real spiritual life. On day 5, we get from chapter 7, verse 53 to chapter 9. And in this section, you'll want to pay attention to the fact that Jesus' opposition, the opposition he faced, was very widespread. Sometimes we can think it was just like the Pharisees and the experts in the law who were opposed to Jesus, but really it was a much broader group. Then on day 6, we get chapters 10 and 11. And in these two chapters, we have some more conversations that center on that matter of life that Jesus came to bring. And finally, we close out the week on day 7 with chapters 12 through 14. And what you'll really want to notice here is that starting with chapter 13, everything for the next 7 chapters, from chapter 13 through chapter 19, all of that deals with roughly the 24-hour period of Jesus' betrayal, suffering, and death. And so an entire third of John's gospel out of 21 chapters, 7 of them are used to talk about that period of Jesus' life. So a real extreme emphasis on that in John's gospel. Well, that's all that we've got for this week. We'll see you next week.